every community's kind of by default dead. You got to keep it alive. I think part of the reason why we're not bigger than we are is the most persistent way people find us is, I think, what makes people lifelong fans. You don't want to end with like, well, I guess nobody else has anything else to say, so bye. It's like that's very weak ending. I've been guilty of it. We've all done it. But much better is like one of the first things we launched on top of the community was 101 founder introductions. Kind of forgot about it. But then people were DMing me like, bro, when is the challenge going to start? And the community like blew up when we did that launch. It like 5x'd in size overnight from that. Can I get deep with you like that? I said, okay. If I had to only have one or the other, I would take the 10 people who actually know who I am and care versus 10,000 people who have just like thought I tweeted something funny once and are interested enough to maybe see something again.
Do you ever think about just doing the regular full-time job? That's gonna, like, you're a software
My
engineer, you
darkest
know how to
hours. Yeah. When I'm feeling myself the least, yeah. Or if I like look up starting salaries and I'm like,
Exactly.
Great questions, by the way. Open up some interesting trains of thought for sure.
Today I am thrilled to have Anthony Castrio on the pod. Anthony is the founder of Indie Worldwide. Hello, Anthony, which is an private community of bootstrapped startup founders. I have been a member for this community for the last few months, and I've met some really cool people. So I was personally curious to have him on the show and just get to know about all the behind-the-scenes footage and learn about how Anthony is building this community business. Anthony, I am super thrilled to have you on here.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. Anthony, why don't we start with talking about your MRR? Just give us a rundown of where are you with the monthly recurring revenue for this business right now?
Yeah, we've been up and down a lot. We had a really good month in November. We did like almost 7,000 in one month. We're back down. A lot of that was one time. We're at like just over 1,000 right now. So it's not a full-time gig as much as I want it to be. Our peak so far has been like 2,500. And our low point was 0 for like most of the existence of the community. We're a free community. So MMR is still kind of a new concept to us.
That's amazing because that's where a lot of people who are trying to start communities are, they want to be at. Like, they want to start a community which can generate this cash flow, and there's a lot they can learn from you. So tell us about the November 7,000 month that you had. What were you doing? That was a Black Friday month, right?
Yeah. So like the past couple years since we started doing like having anything that you could buy, I would run a Black Friday anti-sale where instead of doing a sale, I would commit to raising the prices right after Black Friday and use like FOMO to get people to sign up. So I'd be like, all right, it's $20 a month right now. It's going to be 40 next month. So you better sign up now. And that actually worked pretty well. We got decent sign up bumps. But this year I felt like our prices were already probably too high. So I used it as a good time to actually experiment with a real sale with going down in price. So we did like a sale just on the lifetime sign up, like half off. It would normally be 600, instead it was 300. And a lot of people, I guess, had been on the fence for a while and were waiting for prices to come down. So we got a bunch of signups on Black Friday of people that wanted to join the community and take advantage of the lifetime sale.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess Black Friday sales work. Who knew?
Yeah, I think they definitely work because I joined a community in this Black Friday sale and I had never even heard about it before. So I was able to just go from first learning about it and then making the purchase decision.
Yeah, I think that is the crux of the thing is like, how do you get people to hear about it in the first place? The marketing is never ending. And that's probably always been my biggest challenge is trying to grow a community or even just keep a community the same size is how do you get people to hear about you for the first time? It's hard. So far, it's just taken a lot of being online and like time and effort. And with that fluctuating month to month, it's like, I think part of the reason why we're not bigger than we are is a lack of like some easy, always on growth mechanism. I think to really become like if you wanted to have a really big community, which is not necessarily my goal, it would help a lot to already have like a massive audience somewhere that you can convert. or like really good paid marketing or something like that.
Hmm. What else have you been trying that has worked for you to get new customers? Do you send out like cold DMs, or I don't know, you're pretty active on Twitter as well, right?
Yeah, we've done a lot of different stuff over the years. So for some context, Indie Worldwide is about 5 years old, going on 6 years old at this point. We've gone through a lot of iterations in that time. When we first started, we were just in-person meetups. We weren't even called Indie Worldwide. Then we were like a Facebook group. Then we were a Slack group. Then we added on like one-on-one introductions. Then we became like a paid community. So like every year we go through some kind of change. And the way we found people have changed a lot over time too. So at first it was almost all from events. Then as got more active on Twitter, that started to contribute a lot. I experimented with some like cold outreach, just like finding founders on the internet and inviting them to join, which actually worked pretty well. So did Twitter.
Hmm.
And we did some like product hunt launches, that kind of stuff. Pretty much anywhere where founders are, I've like tried to be, and that helps people find us. And then the most like persistent way people find us is word of mouth. So people telling other people, and a little bit SEO now too. Like if you Google like best community for indie makers or best community for bootstrapped founders, we're usually in somebody's list at this point. And so you'll find us through that. So that's kind of
That's
cool to
also
actually see
like,
people just finding us.
yeah, but that SEO is also like technically word of mouth because it's not content that you've written on your blog, it's other people writing about it worldwide, right?
Yeah, I'm terrible at SEO. I don't know how to do it on purpose. Something I want to
But
learn.
but that's really cool because it's all, from the love of the community members. Have like
Mhm.
a persona of community member in your mind who are most vocal about promoting indie worldwide to other people? Have they received like any specific value prop from the community that makes them go and shout?
Yeah, I think that's like a really important question for any community to ask because like there's a pretty big gap I see right now between like a lot of people will join the community like and then fall off within a month or two. They'll just churn out. It's like, sorry, I don't have time for this, or like I don't get it, or like this seems cool, but it's not for me. And then on the other side of that hill, you've got, people who've been a member for basically since the community was founded like 5 years ago, who are still talking about us. It's like, okay, how do you get person A who maybe had the potential to be person B over that hump? Like, what's the difference? And there's like certain touch points for sure, but I think it comes down to are you seen as a member of the community? Like, do you feel like other people know your name? Do you get some kind of value like right away within the first week? Did you meet somebody that you're going to partner with or work together with? Or like, did you find a new customer? Or did you like learn something that helped you like have a big unlock in your business? That's what's been historically, I think, what makes people like lifelong fans is when they have that kind of really positive experience within the first like week of joining the community. So I try to make that
Mhm.
happen for people right away. Like when you join, like, all right, here's like 4 people you should meet. Join our one-on-one intros. Come to like an event, come meet some people so that you can have that aha as soon as possible. But this last like 6 months, I've also been trying to like create new value props. So the one that we added, I think before you joined, Jesh, was now we do like daily check-in events. So you come in, it's like, okay, I don't have like a team. I'm a solo founder, but I still want some like personal accountability. I want to keep myself on task. So we started like a daily stand-up for founders, totally opt in. You come in, you say, this is what I'm going to be doing this week. This is what I want to get done today. And then tomorrow you come back and say, all right, this is what I meant to do yesterday. Here's what actually happened. And then we can kind of work out like, okay, why didn't you get done what you say you were going to do? Have your priorities shifted? What are you going to work? What do you want to work on now? And just having that moment of like reflection every day seems to help people a lot. And so now I'm seeing this new aha moment that didn't exist last year, which is I live in New Worldwide so much. I'm getting way more done than I did on my own. And we didn't have that one before. So that's been actually a very positive change. And so I want to kind of build more towards that new thing that I'm seeing too.
Hmm. Definitely. I have joined a few of these stand-ups over the last few weeks and they've been really cool. Like there are like what's really surprising is that they're all led by other members of the community. Like a lot of them you're not a part of. So they're like for context, there are two stand-ups happening in the community right now. One of them
Mhm.
is led by you, and then one is led by other community members. And that's really incredible because it's usually like really difficult to organize these community member-led stand-ups or any kind of events.
Hmm.
So what do you think is happening here?
Yeah, and that's mostly a function of like my own insatiable freedom drive. So when I started the first session, I was in New York. Now I'm talking to you from Mumbai, right? So it's hard to keep the New York session running when I'm in a as far away as I can get time zone. But luckily, when I by the time I came here, we'd already been running the New York session for a couple months, so people had had time for it to become a habit and something they didn't want to live without and to like learn the format. So I'm really lucky. Like I've got two members right now who are really consistent in helping me host. So I got Tal and I've got Eric, and I can
Mhm.
rely on either of them. If I'm not there, probably at least one of them are and are going to make sure that it runs correctly, which is great because this month we've been able to have a second session for everybody on this side of the world who isn't able to make the normal time at the first time.
I also want to talk about the mastermind sessions that you run. So there are these mastermind sessions happening every few weeks, and I've never been a part of one, but I find them really, really interesting because you have a topic of the day, and then you have a discussion around that. Can you discuss what these are and how you actually think they're helping members?
Yeah, we've taken these in a lot of different directions. So sometimes it's a um like show and tell. If like here's something I've built, like roast me, give it to me. Help me make this business better. And those can be really useful to like either if you're getting roasted, it's a really specific like coaching session of like here's some ways I can make my business better. And if you're one of the people roasting, you're gonna learn through osmosis at least, you're gonna get some. It's a lot easier to see the problems in someone else's business and then be like, oh shit, like I could do that too. Sometimes than it's just see the problems directly in your own business. So that's one thing we do. Sometimes we'll invite guest speakers. We'll have people come. They'll like, there'll be somebody who's like done something big or like sold a startup recently or something, and we'll try to figure out how they did it and if that's something we can repeat. And lately, we've been throwing in some like unlicensed therapy. We're not doing, we're not therapists, but we're having, what am I, the word I'm looking for? Like people like circle up and help each other out in like a group setting. What is that called? Like a support circle, like
Yeah,
Alcoholics Anonymous,
masterminds.
but for something good.
Yeah.
I guess it's
Hmm.
like a mastermind, but we've been going like really deep on this stuff lately, more less technical and more like emotional of like, mm, mm, why am I making the choices I'm making in my life, or like how does my attitude affect like these business outcomes and topics I haven't, maybe I just didn't have the maturity to approach before when I was started this community and I was 5 years younger. But now that we are, and they've been um, really, really useful because again, if you're like that solo founder who doesn't have anybody in their life that you can talk to about these like kind of founder unique problems, it's nice to have a support group of people going through it with you who can be like, yeah, um, I have made some crazy choices and like, yeah, like this is what you do when it feels like nothing is working and everything sucks about your business. And like, here's how I broke out of it. Maybe this can help you too.
I really like the ones that you're talking about, the one where I get really emotional because I can see myself just finding a ton of value from them. Because yeah, I, like I have those days all the time when it feels like everything is going wrong with my business and I need to just break out of it and think of something new. But
Yeah.
there are so many things, like so many pieces of advice that's floating around, so many contradictory pieces of advice, and my head is filled with all of them, and now I'm really confused.
Yeah. I think I didn't realize how ready people were to like have some of these conversations. Like we had one recently that was called, the topic was how to ruin your life. Like that was the starting point. And then we tried to go like, okay, here's all the things we're doing that, it can fuck up your life or mess up your startup or just like burn the house down that maybe you can avoid if you just kind of talk it out. Because there's a lot of ways to self-destruct as a founder. I think there's more ways to self-destruct as a founder than there are to succeed as a founder. I think some saying that
Mm.
goes like, there's as many ways to be dysfunctional as there are dysfunctional teams, and then there's like I messed up the
Yeah.
phrase. I don't remember it, but you guys go Google it. It's out there. There's like there's less ways to be successful than there are to be dysfunctional. That's what it boils down to.
From like from the early days of running these events to now when you're running these events, like have
Mm.
you learned anything about hosting a group event that you didn't know before and you think is really important?
Yeah, well, one, I just got more comfortable with it. So some of it's just practice. So if you're doing events and you're feeling self-conscious, that's pretty typical. Kind of the same as if you're making any content with yourself in it. It's normal to like not like the sound of your voice at first and that sort of thing. You just get over that with some exposure. So that's one thing. And then there's some more like practical stuff. So beginnings and endings matter a lot. How you start an event, how you end an event, really control how somebody feels about an event and how they remember it. So you want to have a very strong
Mhm.
introduction, or at least by strong, I mean clear. So like, hi, we're at this event. Here's what it's about. Here's why we're here. Here's who I think you are, and then you go from there so that everybody is on the
Mhm.
same page and you've kind of set the tone for the next hour, however long it is. And then you want a clear ending too. Like you want people to have more to say and not have had time to say it all. You don't want to end with like, well, I guess nobody else has anything else to say. So bye. It's like that's very weak ending. I've been guilty of it. We've all done it. But much better is like, hate to cut you off, but we're at time. You know, thanks again for coming.
Mhm.
Here are the main things we covered. Here's like a next step you can take. Our next event is on this date. Like, and then like want you guys to remember something important that you all like learned there, something kind of relevant to the group and end on that so much stronger than just letting it peter
Mhm.
off. It feels like, okay, like there's a sense of finality, and also I still want more of it. So I'm gonna come back next time. It
Mhm.
takes you from like a video call to an actual event. It's just having that bookend, beginning and end. Even if you don't have any other structure, just do that.
Right. Yeah. I found it like I'm embarrassed to say that a few events that I've run for some of the previous communities that I've worked at, like I did let
Mhm.
the event peter off at the end. Like, okay, now we have, I guess we've talked about everything. So let's end the call 5 minutes earlier and bye bye and something, embarrassing like that. But
Yeah.
and also like there have been times when I was at time and there was like the other person was saying something and I just didn't know how to interrupt them in between and I let the conversation extend for another 15 minutes and that was not a good decision. So do you have any what do you tell yourself when you see somebody's speaking and you need to interrupt them now?
Sometimes you just gotta. There's a good note in a book called The Art of Gathering, which is an easy recommendation for anybody building community. There's so much relevant in that book to community building. And it says basically like when you're being polite as an event host, you have to consider like who you're being polite to. So there's being polite to the person who's talking right now, not wanting to cut them off, but then there's also being polite to everybody else in attendance who is, using their time to be there. So you've got to respect everybody's time that have come to that event. And sometimes being respectful, like maximizing, your respect for everybody who's there means cutting off the one person who's talking, even if they are like the guest of honor and saying like, hate to cut you off, but we're at time. Like, would love we'll continue this conversation wherever your community is hosted. Like maybe you can make them available ahead of time for some like Q&A after or something else. But sometimes you just gotta cut them off. And it's almost everybody is always thankful that you did. It's pretty rare that somebody is like in the cases where somebody's speech is like so polished that nobody wants to like miss a word of it, they're probably not going to go over time. And in the case where they're way over time, they're probably rambling and everybody else is already done with it. So it's almost always a good idea to kind of use your best judgment. That's why you exist as the host, to be the person to make that call. But if you're not like wrapped and like losing track of time yourself, it's probably okay to cut it.
Mhm, mhm. That's good advice. Yeah. And The Art of Gathering by Priya Parker. It's like probably the most recommended book on the podcast. So
There's not a lot of great books about community, and that one's a great book about community.
tell me more about the upcoming 100 and 100 challenge. What's it about
Sure.
and why are you doing it?
So the community, or the 100 and 100 challenge is a 100-day challenge to you want to make 100 days worth of progress in 100 days. So this is the third time we hosted the challenge. The first couple, two times we decided for you what your goal was. We said it's 100 users in 100 days. You're going to commit to the next 100 days, trying to get 100 users however you can. And then we had have a leaderboard tracking your progress towards that goal, like masterminds throughout the community, of course, and you're all kind of racing towards this. This time around, I'm opening it up a bit. I'm saying, okay, we're all at different places on our business. We're going to decide for ourselves what our 100-day goal is. The other twist we're adding this year is hopefully, if I can get it implemented in time, stick. So we've always had the carrots of like, you can compete on this leaderboard, you can get some extra attention for your startup. Now we're also adding the option of staking some money against yourself. It's like, all right, $100, I'm betting on myself for sure I'm going to do this. And for every day you miss, we'll take $1 away. Listen, if we donated your lost money to charity, you'd have just another reason to fail. So the money that you lose is going to a fund for dumb shit and evil things. I'm gonna buy dumb things and I'm gonna rub it in your face and I'm gonna donate whatever political party you don't like, they're getting money. Whatever evil in the world, I'm gonna make sure that there's more of it. So make sure you actually do the work that you want to do, or you're going to be making the world worse for everybody. And maybe we'll figure out some counter to that evil as well, but that'll be on you to figure out
No, I
and
really
make
love
up for
that,
your
and
sins.
I cannot wait to check out all your YouTube vlogs on how you are spending all of that money doing dumb evil things.
I hope I don't have any money to spend. I hope everybody does what they said they were going to do, and no evil needs be done. But as the host, I will take it upon myself to make the world a worse place. Too many founders these days promise a better, they want to make the world a better place. Not me. No, I want to make you a better person.
Wow, are you using these lines in your landing page? Because
I'm gonna
they're coming
now.
up
This is
really
good
polished.
stuff.
Yeah.
You got to send me the transcript. This is going on there
I will.
now.
Yeah. Since we're talking about the 100 and 100 challenge and the previous iterations of it, I think it's
Mhm.
a great segue for us to go into a little bit of the history of how you started this community. It started with the first iteration of the 100 and 100 challenge, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So tell us
Actually,
about it.
no, the community predates the first 100 and 100 challenge by like a couple years. The community started from in-person events. So I've been like, this all so like these masterminds have been very helpful. We've had some breakthroughs psychologically. I think it all starts from, my relationship with my mother. It starts from an innate desire for like freedom and control in my life, right? So pretty much straight out of college, I started freelancing. I started working remotely and kind of doing that digital nomad, Peter Levels, 4-hour work week kind of lifestyle. Um, and it was pretty rad. But one of the things that I missed from changing locations all the time was like a steady community. And I feel like a lot of people who've done this eventually stop because of like a bit of a hollowness to it of not having any lasting relationships. How do you build a lasting relationship when you're popping from place to place? So for me, what I started with was like, okay, I want to be an entrepreneur. I don't really know how yet. I'm a freelancer. Like that's sort of a business, but it's not what I ultimately want to do. Let me do what I know, which is like communities. So I started hosting local meetups in different cities. Did one in like Mexico City, one in like Medellin, Colombia, one in like Washington, D.C. Just wherever I happen to be working from, I'd host a meetup. That helped, but then it was still kind of the same problem. It's like, okay, now I at least like have friends where I am now, but I'm gone next month. What now? What do? So it's like, all right, online. Let's just have an online meetup. And then for everybody who's kind of facing the same problem of either I'm traveling too much or I feel like I live in the wrong place for what I'm trying to do, there's somewhere for you to be. So that's how we started being an online community. Everything since then has kind of happened organically based on what I either need for myself to feel productive or what I feel like the community is asking for. So one of the first things we launched on top of the community was one-on-one founder introductions. At the time, Lunch Club was really big, so we were calling it like Artisanal Lunch Club. And we'll introduce you to other founders who make similar revenue to you. Because that's one of the big challenges when you're like, even if friends introduce you, it's like, how much do I weight this conversation? How good is this person's advice? A really easy measure for that is how much money are they making? You know, do they
Right.
just have an idea? Yeah, I'm probably not going to take their like tactical SEO advice or whatever. They don't know what they're talking about unless they have some other credential. Oh, they're making $100,000 a month. Yeah, I'm just going to do whatever they say. They probably know better than me, and I should just take their advice for it. So we still do that, by the way. That's still like a pretty core feature. The 100-100 challenge came out in a pretty similar way of like me personally, I was like, all right, I really would like to get 100 more users in the next 100 days. How should I go about that? Oh, wait, I bet a lot of people would like to get 100 more users in 100 days. What if I motivate myself to do it by making this a group challenge since I already have this community? So I put out, I just like posted in our group chat about it in our Slack. And it was like, would anybody be interested in doing this with me? And a bunch of people said, yeah, for sure. And I was like, all right, probably like I'll do it like next month. Kind of forgot about it. But then people were DMing me like, bro, when is the challenge going to start? Like, I really want to do this challenge. It's like, all right, yeah, I guess there is actually people really want it. They're like asking me to do it. They're following up. So that's when it's like, all right, this one is actually a good idea. And then I launched, like, by launched, I mean, like, I made a Google form and got people to sign up. And then it's like, all right, Google form to Google Spreadsheet to a card landing page, and I'll like code a little bit and make it look like a fancy leaderboard. It's like, all right, challenge. Then we launched on Product Hunt and then even got like some like startup sponsors and stuff who wanted to promote products, and it ended up being pretty cool. And the community like blew up when we did that launch. It like 5x'd in size overnight from that. I was
Wow.
like, okay, cool. Like we're gonna do this all the time.
At this point in time, did you
Mhm.
already have a membership fee associated with joining the community or no?
I think when we did the first one, no, there was no membership fee. And even I think for the second one, we did already. Forget how we did that exactly. It might have been like a temporary pass to join and then ask for the upgrade after, like kind of like a freemium model. The way we're going to do
Okay,
it this way is the challenge is free to join, and then the community is going to be either paid or maybe you can unlock it by having a long enough streak. I haven't decided if I want to allow that yet or not. Think it might
right,
depend on how well it monetizes just based on like people not people staking and then not following through on that. But I don't totally like the incentives that's set up. So, but I want to make the challenge itself free to do. And because it's like going to be
mm,
automated, it won't add like a bunch of labor to me to be able to support that. So you'll be able to track your
right,
streaks and make your updates and stuff like that. But if you want
right,
to like join our live events, if you want to join the mastermind group, if you want to talk to the other participants, I think that's all going to be behind the paywall still.
right. Yeah, no, that's sensible. So it can help you get a lot of new leads into the business.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't want it to just be about like me getting more leads, you know. I want it to be a useful tool for anybody who needs it. And I
Yeah.
think if I build it right, it's going to attract people that I want to be in my community as well.
Hmm. So there's kind of one more thing that you need to do because I want that feature. So for people of the community, you need to allow them
Hmm.
to suggest new dumb ways to use that money. Like if you
Yeah.
want to,
Well, that's an easy one to implement. It's like if you're a member of the community, you can post in the Slack and
yeah,
I'll take your opinion
yeah,
seriously.
exactly.
I want to make
I've got some,
like t-shirts.
yeah.
We'll say like committee for evil, and then we'll video
Mhm.
whatever terrible things we're doing.
Exactly. Yeah, that would be amazing.
Feature request
So,
approved. Pull request merged.
Yay. So when you were starting out this community, like how many Twitter followers did you have and how did you get the earliest members?
Yeah, Twitter, I might have had like 500 or 600 followers.
Not a lot.
Yeah, my Twitter growth kind of chased the community growth. I got really active on there sometime after starting the community. I think I was probably already doing the community for over a year by the time I started really going on Twitter hard. But have found a lot of members there for sure. And like it's social media, so it's got a kind of a snowball effect. Once you've been grown for a bit, it's faster to grow more. Um, but yeah, it definitely wasn't a prerequisite to starting the thing. I don't know if that was strategic. Like in some ways, I think it's, well, in many ways, it's way, way, way easier to start a community if you do have an audience first. So I think I kind of did it on hard mode of like building the community first and then the audience after. Like, the nice thing is
Hmm.
that my Twitter following is mostly people who like I've actually got some sort of connection to, or like at least a large percent of them we've had more than a superficial interaction at some point, even though there's like 10,000 of them just from being really hands-on with the community. I've talked to probably at least like 10%, which on a social media platform is kind of crazy to be like, yeah, I've talked to thousands of people at some point or another in the last few years. Yeah, but if I were to start over today, I'm like, what's if I want to have a community with 10,000 members, what's the most efficient way to do it? It's not like individually signing people up by like reaching out to people one-on-one and curating your first 100 or 1,000 people. Like that's great for making a really valuable, healthy community, but it's not efficient for building a really big community. So I've done the like make a really healthy, valuable community, but I think the people who like have a big audience and get like 1% of them to like pay a one-time fee, you times a million by 1% by $100 or whatever, they're making a lot more money.
Hmm.
So depending on what your goals are, you might want to just build a big audience first and figure out community later.
Hmm. So even for people who already have a big audience, like they're thinking that it's gonna be really difficult for me to run the community and it's gonna suck a lot of my time. Do you feel that that's like a thing or have they
Definitely huge time
already
suck.
done most of the okay, it is.
No, they haven't done any of the work yet. If you're just starting out, it's like a whole nother job you're signing up for yourself for.
Hmm.
Because like every community's kind of by default dead. You got to keep it alive. It's like on urgent care the whole time. Because like think about like every community you've joined, where you join, nobody's posted that day. You're like, this community's dead. Nobody's here. Even if tomorrow and the day before, there's 100 messages. If there's no messages right that second that you're there, you're like, oh, the thing is dead. So finding a way to like show value to people right away when they join is really important.
So if let's say I've got 100,000 people in my email list, I'm thinking of starting a community today. So what are
Okay.
the things that I really need to keep in mind for making sure that this community is successful?
Yeah. Well, why are they reading your email and what do they need? And then can you solve some pain for them with the community? Can you give them something that they're missing?
Hmm, right.
It's just the same for like any product. So you might ask those questions and the answer ends up not being a community. And that's
Hmm,
probably a blessing.
right. Yeah, that
Um,
makes.
but, if it makes sense, if it's like, okay, I've got 100,000 like nursing students and they all want to like trade answers on their homework. It's like, okay, great. Like that's a great reason to start a community because it's going to be really valuable for them.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then you
Right.
set up your everything else based on fulfilling that need.
Hmm. Hmm. Right. Okay. Now I want to take a segue and talk about some personal discipline stuff because I saw some of your tweets around this and I was really curious. So you quit your freelance job to work on Indie Worldwide. So why did you
Mhm.
decide to do that, and why did you feel that you need to go all in instead of just doing them both at the same time?
Yeah, so freelance gave me a lot of freedom over how I spend my time and where I can live and stuff, but not as much freedom as I wanted over like my productive output or like my creative process and these sorts of nebulous things. I've always wanted, for just like ego reasons, I guess, to like be able to make something and point at it and say, like, I made that. That's something I did, you know, not because somebody paid me to do it, because I wanted to do it.
Mhm.
And when I quit freelancing, it was because I had just started monetizing Indie Worldwide. It was growing. I was like, all right, like I got a shot at making this thing work. So I'm gonna stop freelancing for a bit and like go all in on that. That's what I spent the last year doing. Fluctuated a bit, got really close to it covering the bills. It definitely covered the bills some months, but not consistently every month. So now a little bit over a year later, I'm doing some more freelancing and um I'm actually happier. I'm happy to be doing it. Like I feel like it's nice to like be able to flex those muscles again and be like, yeah, I am like a competent, skilled person who can do things that is worth money to other people.
I quit freelancing last month to go all in on the indie stuff, and if it doesn't work this year, then I'll probably take up freelancing once again.
There's nothing wrong with freelancing. I've always called it the bootstrapper seed round. You know, you just freelance till you don't need to anymore because it's
Hmm.
almost always more money per hour than your startup's going to be making for a while. So if you can find a
Yeah,
nice gig that's like 10, 20 hours a week indefinitely, that can really make it all a lot easier. And then you don't need to raise money
yeah,
because you can at least pay yourself. You can pay your bills.
for sure, for sure. And do you ever think about, just doing the regular full-time job? And that's gonna, like, you're a
In my
software engineer, you know
darkest
how to code.
hours. Yeah. When I'm feeling myself the least, yeah. Or if I like look up starting salaries and I'm like,
Exactly.
yeah,
Especially as a
maybe
software
one day.
engineer.
Yeah, it becomes a less and less rational choice. So, well, that's freelancing helps alleviate that feeling a little bit too, to like at least make a third or a half or whatever it is you're comparing against and be like, all right, I'm not like totally eating this opportunity cost. Like I'm mitigating it
Right.
somewhat. Does help a little bit, but yeah, at some point I might make a lifestyle choice and take a job for a bit, and it probably would be healthy. You know, it probably wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But I think I'm also in a different place in terms of like what I want out of life versus like when I started this like 5 years ago, where I was like, I just need to be free. God damn it, I can't work for the man.
Hmm.
Now maybe have a stronger self-identity to start from where I won't feel as much like, oh, just because I have a job, that means I don't have like a personality or like a self-identity. I think now I could
Hmm.
have that like psychic safeguards of like, yes, I work here, but it's not who I am, you know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you've done like a lot of cool stuff. And you're probably like since you've already started, you're not gonna stop even if you're doing a full-time job. So,
Yeah, I think where I'm shifting recently is away from an identity of like what I want my outcomes to be, where it's like before I might have been like, oh, I'm a community manager, or I like started this startup, or like I worked for this company or whatever, and more towards like what do I do day to day? Like what am I just doing all day long? And lately that's like I'm a software developer, like I'm a programmer. Like that's like a craft I can just continually get better at without like a clear end goal. Like you just always be trying to get better at that craft of like product development or writing or like video editing. So like the creation itself can be the end goal and getting better at that. I think that's maybe what frees me up psychologically if we can get deep like that. Can I get deep with you like that? Is that okay?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I think having that idea of like, I just want to be a maker and make stuff and get better at that, I think is what maybe clears me to then go get a job working for somebody else, as long as I'm doing that thing that I like to do and feel like I
Mhm.
have the ability to say no. Like I think like people want the fuck you money, right? Like I want to get rich so that I can tell people to F off if I don't want to do what they want
Yeah.
me to do. You don't need money to do that. You just need like some confidence and a little bit of a safety net. enough to like
Mm-hmm.
cover your bills for enough time to find a new job, and then
Mm-hmm.
the confidence that you can do that. And if you've been indie hacking it long enough, like I've been paying my bills through freelancing and indie hacking for like most of my adult working life at this point. So I've got the FU attitude, if not the FU bankroll. So I think
Right.
that would help.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because I myself, I've been, I first learned about this idea of fuck you money through Jason Fried and DHH and reading their books.
Mm,
And I thought, okay, I need to make something like Basecamp in order to get there. And then I can have that freedom in my life. But I've since then realized that I am already pretty much there because, like, especially when I'm
mm.
comparing myself to like my friends who may be stuck at, I know, a horrible corporate job that they're hating, but they can't get out of. But I can compare them with my scenario where I'm able to choose projects that I am interested in and then just not choose the stuff that's, doesn't feel like it's where I want to be right now. So that's a little bit of a fuck you, at least freedom, yeah, if not money.
Yeah, that's freedom. I
Yeah.
think it's I think it's the most important thing for you and for me and for a lot of people.
Yeah. I think what's really like important here is not the money, but having the optionality. So I think you're creating a lot of optionality for yourself with your Twitter account or using the community, the connections that you're making, so that you are confident that if you wanted to find a new gig or something like that, then you'll be able to get it to these resources that you're making, these assets.
Yeah. I think so there is value in having an audience on some platform. It's like a big newsletter, Twitter or something. I think more useful than that though is relationships. So if you have been giving in your interactions with other people, especially in a field like tech, right, where it all comes around, you don't need a Twitter following or like a countable number of followers on any platform. You just need like 10 people in your industry who know your name and trust you. And that is
Mm,
the social safety net of like, you know, people who know you can do good work and would want to work with you in the future. That's all you really need.
mm,
Having like a big social media presence is a way to maybe kind of scale that a bit. It like definitely has all kinds of benefits, but if all you're trying to get is like the next job, you don't need that. You don't need to go quite that big.
mm,
Where it helps, I think, is like whatever that next thing that you're working on is, like it's got a better shot of seeing life. Like if you're trying to do something more than just get a job, if you're trying to make something that you want lots of people to use, you're trying to build your own startup or your product or create like an even bigger audience or something. If you have an idea, it gives it a chance
mm,
to see enough people to see it to actually have some kind of traction. Where if you're starting from scratch, it can be quite difficult to kick off like that. It's probably easier now than ever before because the short video algorithms I feel like are a lot more forgiving to a new creator than the old school media algorithms were. So like it was really, really hard to pop off on your first YouTube video or like blow up overnight on Twitter. People did it, but it's very rare. Now it's a common thing that you post a TikTok yesterday and you're sort of famous today. So maybe even the lingering benefits of having an existing audience are diminished. So if like you just need the good idea and like the right presentation, and you can grow a lot quicker than you used to be able to grow.
right. That Yeah, that's really smart, and I'm gonna remember that because having like 10 people who know you and who can vouch for you, that's a whole lot easier than finding 10,000 people who will follow you on Twitter.
Yeah. And I would, if I had to only have one or the other, I would take the 10 people who actually know who I am and care versus 10,000 people who have just like thought I tweeted something funny once and are interested enough to maybe see something again. Like the 10 are worth a lot more than that 10,000 in that case.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I think this is a perfect note to end this interview, Anthony. It has been such a pleasure to talk to you and to be able to pick your brain on how you're thinking about building your community business. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. Great questions, by the way. Opened up some
Thank
interesting
you.
trains of thought for sure.
Yeah, I love that.